Introduction to material. We have variety of steel that you can use for a knife making. There are some recommended, some they don't, and I just want to actually show you the pros and cons a little bit over here so you can understand it. As you see, this is a normal spring steel from a car. You can get this one from a junkyard. And then over here we have actually a really old rasp that you can, if you have a grandpa's rasp, you can use it. Or you can get a crowbar, or same as another piece of actually spring steel. So the thing is that all these, they are high carbon steel, but you don't know the structure of the steel and you don't know how they're gonna perform it. If they throw this one in a junkyard, why they even throwing it over there? Maybe it wasn't a good steel at the first point that it broke, or anything else. So for our project, we're definitely gonna use a solid mono steel. This is a 1084. And we're going to use this one, and the reason I usually go for the actual good steel is because first of all it's cheap and is also accessible. You can easily order it online, and also at the end of the day there's so many processes and heat treatment process that you want to learn throughout the time. They are available online and you can do it, but for any other steel like this one that people normally, I see it, they use it. It's good to use it for the practice, but I wouldn't recommend it for any type of performance knife. It's better to go with a solid, nice steel and clean. All right, in this section, we're going to learn a little bit about the machinery, how to transfer a prototype design to our steel, and started to profiling it and beveling the grind using the Combat Abrasive belts. At Combat Abrasive, they are able to make any types of belt again for you. We have a 2x48 Craftsman over here. If you have a 1x32 from Harbor Freight, or at this scenario, we have a 2x72 that we're going to use that one for this project. So any type of a machine that you have you can definitely use it. And so here we go, how to start it to just doing actually a design transfer. I am going to use the steel blue. You can purchase this one from Amazon or any local hardware store. They're gonna have this is steel blue. So we're going to mask out our steel with the steel blue so we can put our scribe line on it, and I'll show you how to transfer that. So just to putting a little bit of ink to make sure that we have the die. And one of the benefit of this die is that it can actually last in a high temperature. So when you do actually your profiling, you still be able to see your lines. So don't use the Sharpies or anything else that you have it. Normally Sharpies, they don't have the high temperature capability and you will lose your lines after it gets heat up. So make sure to buy one of these, and we're putting actually a link in the description for you too so you can have it. All right, so we're going to transfer our prototype to our steel. One of the tricks to actually tell you guys, you can buy a normal scriber. I have it somewhere around here. So you can buy a normal scriber with a carbide tip. If you don't have that one at home, that's not a problem. You can use a small little drill bit and actually sharpen the tip and put it inside a normal pen. That can do the same thing as that. They're pretty much good enough to actually do scribing. So now I put actually my prototype on my steel, make sure that everything is balanced on each side is perfect. So now I'm gonna clamp one side to make sure it doesn't move. Started to scribing my steel all around. Make sure you get all the lines, go back and forth a little bit. So this is another benefit. If you have a prototype like this, now I don't have any problem. If this thing moves around, I can adjust it again. If you're using just a normal paper, you're gonna have a problem unless you have so many copy off of that one. This is just one copy forever, and if you really like this knife, you can recreate it over and over, so you don't have to print it out. You always have a prototype and a perfect size. So make sure you do actually a good lining all around your holes. You want to make sure you have your holes over there. So, and then we're gonna clamp this one in a drill bit and started to drilling the holes on that one. So it's just simple technically drawing again, and this way your hand is getting used to it. So here we go. We did all good lining, and now we have our first transferred design to our steel, and I have my prototype for later on if I want to use it. So I punched my holes over here. Make sure you do that one so your drill bit doesn't move around. So as I said, for the pins, I'm choosing to go with the 3/16 drill bit. And for the lanyard hole, I'm gonna go for 1/4 inch. And I usually use the carbide drill bits, and you can buy these online again, but if you don't have it, other material from Home Depot or Lowe's, if you're buying them, sometimes it works, sometimes it's not. This is the safest one. And also it's much more easier to work for the high carbon steel, so these can last you longer. Pay a little bit more, but it can last you longer. So here we go to starting hole. I do have actually a clamp over here that I can put this one in a clamp, but I'm assuming that you guys don't have that one. You need to make sure that you have some sort of a solid drill that you can put the hole on it, and I usually have a glove in the other hand, so if something move around, so I can hold it much more easier. So here we go. All right, so now I have my actually scrub lines. I have my holes drilled out on the actually knife. So for the profiling, I normally use a used 36 grit, and just don't want to ruin the new belt, but so that's why I'm using an old one. But we're gonna see the process of how am I gonna profile this knife to the actual steel. All right, safety first. Make sure you have your respirator, your glasses on. This hat, I have my hat on too. So we're adjusting the lights. Everything is correct. Everything check, check, check. Then we're going to turn it on. So I'm going to use a piece of stick. And follow the line. Make sure you don't go over the line, you just go slow and steady. You're following the line and you follow. This stick will help you to hold up the actually steel better when you want to move it around. So as you see, this is a used 36 grit and is aggressive enough to actually eat all the actually steel, and you can perfectly remove it. So not every time you have actually a small wheel on your machine, and in this scenario I actually got the majority of the profile of the finger groove out, and then now I'm going with a file to make sure everything is round and is clean, and so it doesn't hurt my hand as I'm going to use it. and then we're gonna go for a hand sanding after that. But right now I'm just cleaning up the finger groove. So this is my magnet that I'm using for surface grinding and surface cleaning it up. It's actually a speaker magnet that I cut it in half and I laminated between two walnuts. And now it's super heavy duty that you can attach the blade on it and it doesn't move at all. And you'll see that I'm going to clean up the surface so I can get ready for the bevel grinding. All right, don't go one line all the time. You want to move it around. If you don't do that one, you're not going to get a consistent line on your blade. So make sure you're twisting it around on your flatten area. So the way I do it, you're moving it around so you can get a smooth surface all across. If I go continuously, you're gonna get big gashes into it. So make sure you move it around. Now we're gonna sometimes these getting a little bit hot. So now I'm gonna turn it around, putting it this side. You make your body straight over the actual blade and make sure everything is 90 degrees if you're looking at it from the top. There we go. You can see all smooth out. We got to a good point. We're going to use our steel blue to putting a good center line in this blade, putting it all across. In order to make sure our bevels are going to be balanced too, we blew out the sides as well. There are spray for these steel blue as well. It makes the life easier. I have those, but I wanted to show you guys the simplest one. Again, there's a different price range for these. You can take a look at them online. So just make sure you blow it out really well so you can see your line as you're grinding it. All right now we have our steel blue is kind of got dried out. So there are ways that you can get the center line of the blade. There are jigs out there that you can use them and you can put it so this thing has 2 pins on each side and a carbide tip, so you can put it and start it to sliding it. It's going to give you this center line. Or if you have a caliper, you can just measure your thickness and divide it by 2 and then start it to just scribing it each side. So the one that you usually don't even have any of that in the house, so it's just the easiest one is a drill bit. So you put your drill bit, your blade down and a drill bit, and you make sure it's a pretty much flat area. And I usually use the granite because it's the most cleanest surface. Now I'm gonna put you have a variety, so some of them they're thin, some of them they're high. So this one is the best one, is balanced out perfectly. I make sure my tip is in the center, and I started to scribing the edge from one side first. And then I rotate the blade and I do it again. All right, as you can see, we have the center line perfectly. And now that's a place that we're gonna follow, and we're gonna do our first grinding based on this edge. All right, now in order for me to put the first grinding, I wanted to have a 45 degree on my edge. So I got one of these the angle gauge from online, and this is magnetic, so I can put it and I can see exactly where is going to be my angle. Right now I'm at 0. You can adjust your, I don't know what type of a machine you guys have, but you can adjust your machine any way you like it. So this machine allows me to do it easy. Going to 45. And based on our prototype, I put the choil line or ricasso or plunge line over here. They make sure that everything is going to be in the same balance. We're going to fix that one in a later on stage, but right now I know this is where I'm going to start my belt and started doing the 45-degree grinding. So as you see, we have actually a center line perfectly done, 45 degree, and that's our edge is going to be. So now we started to grinding the bevel based on that edge. All right, there are different methods to do a bevel grinding. You can buy a high-tech jigs that there are online that you can actually adjust your level, that the amount of a bevel that you want to have it with that one. Another easiest method that I've seen people doing it actually is just a flat angle sight. They clamping up the knife over there just like this, and you can adjust again with a couple of screws. If you make it down there, you can adjust your bevel line as well. So I always wanted to use either one of those methods, but never been comfortable. I rather to do it with the hand, and it's much more easier. So in this case, I'm going to use my push stick, and this is a method that I learned it from my own teacher, and so I just wanted to show you guys that how I use the push stick style. And it's pretty much a freehand method. So the concept is that I'm going to look from the top of the blade so I can see the area that the belt is going to attach to the steel. So I started to pushing it area by area, and as I going it. So this left hand is just going to move the blade in. You're going to hold it in a certain angle. You don't want to go so steep down. You just want to get rid of the first layer or a first millimeter around here. So sometimes you can actually start it to lining out for your lines over here to make sure how far you want to go. Again, this is just the simplest way. So in this case, I'm just going to push it slowly, 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 slowly going down, and then I'm going to switch it over, and slowly I'm going to bring up my bevel until the time that I'm feeling happy. And here we go. So as you see, I follow the bevel, follow the belly of the knife, and I go forward. So you're putting an extra, sometimes it comes down, you're putting an extra pressure, then you can get a ballast line. But I follow a knife profile as I'm going in. You can go straight, then you're gonna get a different type of grinding. So these are all experiments that you can do. But for now, we're just gonna go with one side. So now we have our first initial on the left side down, and we're gonna go do the same thing for the right side. I still push along the top part of the blade. I don't go down, I'm just right at the edge of the blade. That's where I'm pushing it. Right now my right hand is moving it, my left hand is just pushing it. And I don't push it too hard, just mellow enough to let the abrasive remove the material for you. So I put less pressure here, I need to adjust that. We're getting there. Now I'm gonna go for one good round. Perfect, now we're gonna go further down a little bit. You can see our lines is coming along. So I keep looking at it from the top to make sure that my surface area where it's attaching. As you see, it's small and you want to attach it flatly. That's where you go. So right now it's a bigger space. If I turn it, it's going to be flat out. So I realize that that's my line. That's how you need to go. So far, we've been profiling the blade using a used 36 grit, and I also did the initial grinding on the bevel with the 36 grit. So now I'm going to switch over to another 60 grit, but this one is also used. It's much more smoother surface, and I don't need to use any new ones. So this one still does the work. I just need to clean it up a little bit with a combat eraser and started getting it done. One quick tip about combat abrasive. We're receiving a lot of questions about this specific thing, that how fast for what grit I should use the belt. And if you actually have an adjustable speed on your machine and you're really specifically working on a special bevel line, so we recommend to just go in a lower speed. So if you're having a high speed, you will remove the material super fast. But in this scenario, I actually have it 1/3 of the speed of the machine, and then now I have a better control over the actually edges when I'm grinding it. So high speed, it's removing fast, yeah, that's good for initial, but after that it's better to go slow speed so you can have a better control on your edges. Here we go. All right, so over here, I am not pushing anything against the platen hard. I just hold the knife against the platen with this hand, and this arm is actually just pushing it back and forth. So now I can actually have much more precision on my bevel line as I'm grinding it to make sure that the both side is equal. You're looking at from a tip, you want to make sure the both side is getting together. At some point you're gonna have a correct kind of like an arrow face to it. So that's all that matters. So speed up the machine and the pressure, all these you need to make sure attention that everything is on the right track in order to get a better grind. All right, we're pretty much done with the initial of the rough grinding. All the geometry is correct. My plunge line is in the center. My tip, everything is correctly attached together. The profile is ready. The initial grinding, everything is ready. So the only thing is left, I'm gonna go ahead and clean it up the blade right now and then get ready for the heat treatment.